Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talking Logistics, where we have conversations with thought leaders and newsmakers in the supply chain logistics industry. It's my great pleasure to welcome today's program Daryl Fisher, who's Director of Supply Chain Solutions and Analytics at Batory Foods. And Daryl is participating in our latest installment of Profiles in Yard Management Excellence, where we highlight companies that are driving continuous improvement and innovation in yard management. So it's great to have, welcome Daryl here to share his story there at Batory Foods. So Daryl, welcome to the program.
Hi, Adrian. Thank you. It's
good
to be here.
Great. So, before we dive into the topic, in case folks are not familiar with Batory Foods, why don't you tell us a little bit about the company and your current role and responsibilities there?
Sure. Batory Foods is a national food ingredient distributor. We are based in just outside Chicago, but we have about 8 company-owned distribution centers and customers all over the US. Over the past few years, we've significantly grown from really just being a Midwest-focused company to growing nationally. And that's been partly by acquisition and partly by just organic growth, recruiting additional salespeople. Our value proposition, if you like, for our customers is to really be a one-stop shop for all of the ingredients they need. And we'll do all kinds of additional value-added services, custom blending, marking products with their specific item numbers, anything that's going to speed up their production processes and make their processes more efficient in their manufacturing environment.
Great. And the clients you serve, what type of clients do you serve?
A whole range of food manufacturers. So bakers, people like people like Flowers Bakeries, soft drink manufacturers like Monster Soft Drinks, a whole variety of different types of food manufacturers.
Great. So it's great to hear that you're growing, right? That's always a great proposition there, and it sounds like you've got operations across the country now, right?
Yeah. That's right.
So to get started, to tell us a little bit about yard management at Batory Foods, particularly before you implemented your current solution. I mean, what business challenges or improvement opportunities led you to seek a solution?
Okay, well, it really started where we actually realized that we needed to invest in a new facility in the Chicago area. So we built a new flagship distribution center, 700,000 square foot facility in Wilmington, Illinois. And that's been open now probably for about 8 months. But we did that, and as part of that whole process, we got very close with one of our current suppliers. And we decided really to offer them third-party logistics services and actually run their distribution for them too out of the same facility. And part of that involved the import of a large number of containers of the dairy product from New Zealand. So our issue then was initially started out with one of managing the container locations, being able to keep an accurate inventory of those containers, and also being able to share that information with our partners, transportation partners, customers, and so on. However, the scope of that also kind of increased with the introduction of the FSMA food safety regulations by the US government. So that put an extra onus on security in the yard and really being able to track which drivers were coming in and leaving and make sure that we really are validating their identification and meeting the new requirements that the government are imposing on us.
Right. So it sounds like, the added responsibility of this partnership you have with your supplier, bringing in all these containers and then being able to have visibility and be able to track that effectively. And then obviously now kind of the compliance aspect of it from a regulatory standpoint. Yeah.
Yeah.
So to achieve your objectives, I mean, what were some of the key capabilities that you were looking for in a yard management solution then?
Yeah. Well, first of all, the ability to share that information was definitely a key capability. And obviously nowadays, I guess cloud technology is the way to do that. So to be able to have our partners sign into the system and actually look at the information whenever they needed to. The next capability was really the accurate tracking of those containers in the yard and really recording when we received them and what date we had to have them out of the yard by and actually have them emptied and processed to avoid detention charges for us and for our customer. And then the other capability was really being able to track drivers coming into the yard as soon as they're getting on site and manage and see when they exit and ensure that we really know who is on site, that we can confirm their identity and when they leave the site.
Now, how would you do that? Before the solution, were you doing that manually? Was it just
yes,
clipboards?
That was very manually with a clipboard with a driver sign-in sheet in the office that the driver would report to. Very rarely actually checking their ID to actually validate that he was who he is. So yeah, very kind of simple, probably very common to most distribution centers that are out there now.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, that's why I joked. It was kind of a clipboard with sheets, which is what I hear most often. And then you've got Excel spreadsheets going back and forth, between different groups. Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about, the evaluation process. I mean, who was involved and what, factors ultimately led you to select Pink as a partner?
We had people from the operation, we had people from the IT group, so from the warehousing operation, people from the logistics area who were very, used to dealing with our carriers and moving our freight. So that was kind of the main group that we had. Then our selection process, we captured a very small RFP. We had some idea of what our requirements were, but we were a little not naive, but we didn't really know that all of the capabilities that were out there now. So we really did some research. And then with that group, we went through a number of site visits, spoke to some peers, some customers of existing companies out there about their experiences with the solution and the kind of benefits they were seeing. And that really led us down to go with Pink.
Great. So then how did you go about implementing, the solution? I mean, who was involved and how long did it take? I mean, did you start out, you said you had 8 facilities. Did you start out with one facility and then see how it went and rolled out from there? Just kind of curious how the implementation was rolled out.
Yeah, you know what? We really only implemented it in our new facility. So with that's our 680,000 square foot facility with about 300 yard spots with containers. And we implemented it immediately that the warehouse opened. Prior to that, we were very involved with the IT group where we integrated to the system, as well as the operations guys coming up with the processes and defining what the processes would be for a driver, for the office, and fitting the application into those processes. We spent a lot of work with Pink actually designing the kiosk. So the interaction that the driver was going to have at the gate was very carefully designed. And, it's a little bit of a work in process. We're fine-tuning it as we go and seeing, what works well with the drivers, what makes a driver more likely to use that screen. So, yeah, the IT guys, the operations guys, and a lot of time with Pink to actually kind of design that solution.
Great. So to tell me a little bit about that you mentioned a kiosk and the drivers. What is that exactly? Is that a kind of the way the drivers check in and out of the yard? Exactly,
yes. So it's integrated with our other systems and with Fonterra's, our partners' systems too. So when a trailer or when a truck arrives, the guy pulls up to the kiosk at the gate, and there's really 2 things that we're trying to do there. One is validate what he's actually there for. So he actually has to enter either a order number or a container or trailer number, a load number, some method that we can identify what he's actually on site for. And then once we can identify what he's doing, whether he's dropping a load, picking something up, we are then validating his ID. So we're confirming who he is. If he's been there before, we can confirm his identity on the kiosk. Or if he's a new driver, he enters his name and he is asked to report to the office where he can be registered.
Oh, great, great. So it's a much more, it sounds like it's a much more automated, type of environment and self-service, particularly if you're a returning driver. It kind of helps expedite that whole entering the yard process.
And that was the reason for kind of a lot of doing that. So not only making it easier for the driver, but so we don't have to be validating his ID every single time he comes to the yard.
Right, right. Now, in terms of the, locating and tracking the containers or the trailers, are you using RFID for that? I mean, how does that work? How does that process work?
Yeah, we're using RFID. So when the driver is at the kiosk, and we've been able to identify him, and we've been able to identify the load he's carrying, he takes an RFID from the dispenser there and scans it on the kiosk. Then when he pulls into the yard, he applies that to his vehicle. So the yard spotter, as he's driving around, the system is automatically scanning his location. So we're reporting and recording his location on a map in real time. Now, there are also some kind of value-added features there that we're getting out of the system now, that if we've identified him and that load is marked as a hot load that we need for a shipment that's going out, he will immediately be directed to a door so we can start unloading him as quickly as possible. And also for a outbound load, if he is picking up an outbound load that we already have staged in the warehouse, he'll be directed immediately to go to the closest door to where that inventory is staged to make that loading process easier.
Great, great. So I mean, that leads me to kind of my next question, which is, what have been some of the benefits, achieved to date, or any unexpected benefits?
That I think those kind of benefits were a little unexpected. We were hoping to achieve something, but those benefits of certainly identifying the hot load and streamlining that process to get urgently needed inventory expedited as quickly as possible was we weren't sure how well that was going to work. So that whole kind of integration with the rest of the supply chain process, rather than just, being within kind of the yard, how it fits into the total process, was something that was a benefit to us. I think if we were doing it again, 2 months whether we would actually do it when we open a new facility, because there are so many other systems and other processes that you're putting in place at the same time. Sometimes it's a little difficult to focus on some of those things when you're really focused on shipping orders to customers. So it probably took a little while for us to get those benefits to kind of ramp up and get the level of compliance from the truckers that we needed. But it's improving. We are getting there and monitoring that.
Right, right. Well, it sounds like you really needed to kind of lay that foundation, to get to then be able to achieve those ancillary benefits there, obviously. So, what's next for, Batory Foods? I mean, in terms of, driving continuous improvement in your yard operations, and how can technology help you? From a yard perspective, I'm trying to think now of what other products we've got. We're looking at our integration with our WMS and see if we can make that a little closer to get some more benefits in there. And it's already closely integrated with our appointment scheduling system. Other extensions to the yard, other than us maybe rolling it out to other facilities, there really isn't that much additional stuff we currently have planned. To be honest, Batory as an organization, we're putting a heavy focus on the planning side and the inventory side of the supply chain next. We've put a lot of energy and effort into the execution side over the past couple of years. And I think developing our planning facilities to actually make better use of the data that's now available from those execution systems like the yard and the WMS
is what our kind of next focus areas are going to be.
Right, right. No, I think that's a great point. I mean, I think what you see is, you now have, so much visibility, and you part of your role is analytics. And I think
Exactly.
what you find is that now you've got access to this data and information and insights that probably you didn't have before when you were just using those, clipboards and paper-based systems, that there might be opportunities to further, drive productivity improvements or further automation within your operations.
Exactly. I mean, there are a few little things like it. Just yesterday, we rolled out now a process where with one of our LTL carriers, we're now introducing a drop trailer program with them, and we are preloading the LTL loads, and we're generating the pro numbers and putting them on there for them to help them, so they can come in and they spend a lot less time on site. And also from a FSMA compliance, that means we're not having the carrier wandering around the warehouse and having to monitor them. So there are a few little things like that that the yard helps us implement as we're kind of continually improving. But I do see the big benefits now, exactly as you said, with the visibility of that data and looking at the planning processes.
Great, great. Well, Daryl, with the time we have left, as a way to wrap up, I mean, what words of advice or recommendations would you give to other companies that, perhaps just getting started on their journey of evaluating and selecting and implementing a yard management solution?
People are always saying testing when you're implementing any system, and that is definitely true in this case too. Certainly validating the data when you're integrating with other systems. But also, I think, be a little open to you're not going to solve all of the problems immediately. Certainly when we had a greenfield site, we thought things were going to work a certain way, and things that looked very simple and very obvious, when you actually put them out there, things worked a different way. So definitely be open to continuous improvement. Don't try to be perfect all at once. Get it in, get it working, get experience of using it, and then gradually improve it.
Great. And it sounds like obviously you had to get, the buy-in or the support of, the carriers that were coming to your facility to kind of use it and learn that process, as well as your own internal people, right? That are, change management, people always say, is always the biggest hurdle to overcome, to kind of move away from the way we've always done things to, arguably a more efficient and productive way of doing things.
That is always an issue. I think one of the benefits, I think, from it being a greenfield site was that we didn't have a lot of people who were already used to an existing process, though we could define something completely new, which I think probably made that a little easier for us. But certainly if you're putting in an existing operation where you already have those existing relationships in place, then that certainly would be a big challenge.
Great. Well, Daryl, we're out of time here today, but like I always say at the end of all our episodes, we always just manage to scratch the surface on this topic. But thank you for sharing your story and your insights and advice on driving continuous improvement and innovation in yard management. So again, thank you for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you for having me, Adrian.
And thank you for those of you that joined us. If you've got a question for Daryl and you're watching this on the Pink Solutions website, you can post a comment there, and I'm sure Daryl will be more than happy to respond via that medium.
Sure.
Again, thank you very much for watching this latest installment of Profiles in Yard Management Excellence, and look forward to seeing you in the next installment. Have a great day.